Please stand by.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Warning. What is your name?
I am Jay Ramone, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
If the FCC knew you were doing drugs on the air, shut us down!
This gets more work done more accurately.
I will sit down with bands, artists, chefs, business owners, and fellow Oklahomans to talk about their projects and dealing with day-to-day life.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
The power of the internet is truly amazing.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast. You can find all of the episodes on podcast platforms everywhere, and make sure you check out the Jay Ramone Podcast YouTube channel, available now. Back in 2018, I had reached out to a few people about doing a special podcast episode all about Dimebag Darrell and the impact that he had on Oklahoma musicians. And this all stemmed from a friend of mine named Cameron Conyer, who's a guitar player and tech, and the guy can fix absolutely anything. He purchased a Dean Dimebag guitar and posted pictures of it. And that's where this idea came from. And so I reached out to Cameron Conyer. I reached out to Zane from Locust Grove because he plays Dean guitars. I reached out to Provo from Everybody Panic and Ricketts, as well as Cody Canada from Cross Canadian Ragweed and Cody Canada and The Departed. And I recently came across this episode from 2018, and it's not on the new platform. So I wanted to release this in honor of Dimebag Darrell and his birthday today.
3, 2, 1. Do it.
I wanted to do something to kind of talk about the influence that Dime had on Oklahoma musicians. So I thought I would gather a few Okies and talk about their influence from Dime. We're going to talk to Provo from Everybody Panic, Vince or Vinny from the band Trainwreck. We're also going to talk to Cody Canada from Cross Canadian Ragweed, as well as Cody Canada and The Departed. We're also going to talk to Cameron Conyer, who was a part of the Pantera tribute, and also going to talk to Zane from Locust Grove, who has played the Dean ML guitars for as long as I can remember. So we'll just get things started. Hello, the cat.
Is this Jay?
This is Jay. Is this Cody?
Hey, buddy. Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We just loaded in here in Dallas. Rainy. We're supposed to play outside, but I think I'm going to try to make something work on the inside.
Yeah, that's probably better for the guitars that way.
Yeah, it's pretty gross out here, man.
But I'm sure you're no stranger. You've been shocked probably a few times by a few microphones before.
We have improvised more than once.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I bet you it was somewhat of an odd request when you found out you were going to be interviewed for a rock radio station.
Well, actually, I got really excited because I grew up on the Cat.
That's what we like to hear, and I just assumed, because I'm a Cross Canadian fan and a Departed fan, that I just assumed you grew up listening to the Cat a little bit, because I can hear that rock influence in there.
Man, that's all I listened to when I was a teenager.
I've always told everybody that Red Dirt isn't country. It's a mix of rock and country together, and a lot of those bands are rock bands,
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff that I was influenced by was like the early country stuff with Haggard and Willie Nelson and stuff, and really George Strait. It was about as far as it went. And then after that is when I discovered rock and roll through my sister, and then I really didn't listen to anything else.
What was the very first rock band that you remember that really you grasped onto?
The very first thing I remember hearing, and I thought, holy crap, was The Who. When I was, I was probably 7 years old. I heard The Who coming out of my sister's bedroom, and I thought, I don't know what this is, but I want to do it forever.
That's a pretty damn good influence right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, everything from Hank Williams and Willie Nelson to The Who and Pantera, that was my upbringing.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you. Is I'm doing kind of a special feature about Dime and the influence that he had on Oklahoma musicians. And the first thing that came to mind was the Cross Canadian song Dimebag. And I've talked to you before with The Departed when I worked in country radio, but we never talked about this. And I kind of wanted to get your perspective and kind of where that song came from.
Well, I mean, there was no escaping listening to Dime's guitar playing. I mean, being a fan of just of guitar, period. But when I was younger, I heard through Jeremy, our bass player. He was more my metal side. He always kept me in the loop, and I just thought, man, this guy's an alien. And I just listened to it with Jeremy for years, and then once we got really busy with Ragweed, I felt like I didn't listen to anything because we were just. It seemed like we would get up in the morning and do TV or radio, and then we would do in-stores, and then we would go do sound check, and then we'd do another in-store. So for like 5 years, we didn't do anything. And through that, getting that busy in Dallas, we started running into some of the crew with Pantera, and they had asked us a million times to come over to the club to hang out after we would play Billy Bob's or somewhere in Dallas. And man, we just never could do it. By the end of the night, we were just so wiped out. And man, one day we woke up and it was too late. We just never got a chance to do it. I'd met Vinny, several times, but never really got the chance to meet Dime. But Vinny was such a sweetheart and a good person to us. And we were sitting in Vegas when we heard the news. I was actually sitting at a poker table with my wife when we heard the news. And the night was over. We went and had a shot and called it a night. And it's just the impact of, you're on stage doing what you love to do for people that love what you do. And all of a sudden it's over. Just a random act of stupid violence, just out of jealousy or whatever, whatever caused it. And it really just, I couldn't let it go. And I had to write about it. And Mike McClure, my producer and songwriting friend and musician alike, I started kicking that idea around to him. And the good thing about writing with him is I know that if I say something and he immediately jumps on it, then it's going to be something that we're going to put our hearts into at 100%. But, if he doesn't like it, I have to just chalk that one up for another loss. But once I said the whole Dimebag Darrell, God bless that man, he was all over it. And I don't know, I feel like a labor of love to me, and said it 1,000 times that I will never stop playing it. It's one of those tunes that's in every set, every night. Not only because of, people wanting to hear it, but just, I don't know, I felt the connection with Dime. I met all of his friends, and John, his tech, and I are good buddies. And I never really got a chance to hang out with the guy, but I really felt a connection between the two bands,
Dime and Vinny were exactly like that crew, if you can imagine that. If you've ever spent, a time hanging out with the crew, that's exactly how Dime and Vinny were. It wasn't like a job and employees who worked for them. It was just one big giant family who all hung out and barbecued together and had good times, and that's how they were. It was unbelievable.
Well, that's the way it should be. I know that you've seen it, and I've been around it all my entire career. But there's some acts that they don't even know somebody's name.
Absolutely.
Crew, and I don't know. I learned from an early age we're all in this together. We're all doing one thing, and really the one thing is all these people that are helping you and your crew. They're chasing your dream. So be nice and take care of people and have those dinners and barbecues and family gatherings like you're talking of.
And that's exactly what they did. Well, I know that I've played that song on numerous radio stations, and they were all rock stations, and everybody asked me why did I play that, because that was a Red Dirt song, and I'm like, no, that's an Oklahoma song, and that's something that every single rock listener can relate to.
Yeah. And the funny thing is we never ever claimed to be a country band. I mean, we never did. And we just, I think what happened is we were put on a Nashville label, and that Nashville label was trying to do something a little edgier, but it still had that Nashville above it, so that's where we got pegged as a country act, I think. But I don't know, they have National Dime Day and on satellite radio on one of the metal stations. I think it's Ozzy's Boneyard. They play that song every year, and I don't know. It's an honor to know that me writing a tune for somebody that I looked up to, gets recognition every year during his birth or his passing.
Well, I didn't know if you would come on or not, and I just saw the press release come through my email that you were playing the Tower Theater, so I was like, you know what, this is going to be a perfect opportunity for me to reach out and see if he would even be interested.
Man, like I said, dude, I've been a fan of the Cat since I was a little kid.
That makes me happy, man. I've been a fan since I was a little kid, and when I finally got the job here, I walked in the door and I see Greg Zubak, and I just started laughing because it brought back so many memories,
Yeah, Jeremy and our bass player Jeremy and I, we always do, every time we drive through Oklahoma, we always do our best Zubak imitation.
I want to hear it now.
There's a skirt alert out there, babies.
That's so great.
When Ragweed split, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want it to happen. But there was just no doubt that it was happening. So, I talked to Jeremy, and I said, what are we going to do? And he said, man, we just keep doing what we're doing. This is what we're put here to do, and we don't have, a lot of time on the earth, so let's just keep going. So we just kept chugging, in the first couple of records. The first record was an Oklahoma tribute. The second record, it was okay in my book. It was really kind of a stretch. Once we got the three-piece solidified, it's Jeremy and I have been together since 6th grade, and he was with us from the beginning to the end of Ragweed. And Eric on drums, I've known him for 25 years from Stillwater, and it was just easy. This would have been our 25th year of Ragweed, so Eric knows all of the songs.
God, that's hard to believe.
It's crazy, right?
Wow.
And we have, he knew all my stuff, and he sat in on some of the sessions that we did with some of our records with McClure. So it was really just simple. It's like, okay, this is easy. This is what we do, and once we got back into that, I started writing like myself again. And I called McClure and I said, man, I'm ready to get back into the saddle with you, and I'm ready to do another record. And I said, I don't want it to sound like this. I don't want it to sound like that. I just want us to go in there and do it and not overdo it. If it's a good lyric, and let's run with it, and let's don't do 15 takes. Let's do the right one. And that's what it was, And I also told him, I'm a destination record maker. I like to go somewhere and like soak in the scenery, and we went to California a couple times and just kind of soak it all in. But I realized that that's a little distracting. So we went out in the country south of Austin, north of where I live, and man, there was no distractions, no cell phone service, and we just dove in and made this record. And I said, there's no timetable. It's been 3 years since I put out a record. I don't have a record label to answer to. So within a year from the day that we did the first downbeat to release date, it was almost exactly a year. And I know for a fact it's my favorite thing that we've done as The Departed. It's probably my second favorite record that Jeremy and I have ever done, period. And just because there was no pressure, and it was just simple, and observational writing again. I wasn't trying to make stories up. It was just writing about somebody going through something, or me going through something, or watching my kids grow. And I don't know, it turned into being easy again like it did 20 years ago.
Well, I know, when you guys were in Stillwater, that first record on Universal, you guys were releasing the video for 17 that you had just shot there in Stillwater and in Perkins and stuff. And you guys were playing a show, I believe it was the Wormy Dog Concert Hall there on the Strip. And I'm belly up to the bar at Mike's College Bar, and you guys come walking in the door and right up to the bar, and somebody was with you who opened up a tab for you guys to take some shots, and you guys were headed to the show, and they were about to close it out, and whoever was said, no, keep it open because we're going to come back and take some shots after the show, because back then I guess the concert hall only served beer.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say thank you for all those drinks that I put on your tab that night, because you guys left it open while I was sitting there at the bar.
I wish I could take the credit for it. More than likely it was probably one of the record people.
Well, good. I'm glad I ran it up then.
Yeah, exactly.
Except hopefully he didn't charge you guys back for it.
I bet somewhere down the line we probably paid for it, but I don't know. Money has never really mattered to me as long as you're having a good time in the moment.
Well, and to beat all that, I snuck into the show just about 45 minutes later anyway.
Man, I remember that night. That was because it was almost mirror image to what the Great Divide did. I remember going to their video release and all their announcement that they were with a record label and everything, and then all of a sudden we did it. And I don't know. That's when I realized that Stillwater was on fire.
Man, it was a fun time to live in Stillwater. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, I go up there every year and still do the homecoming. It still is fun, and it's nice to retrace our steps. And it's hard to believe that was 20-something years ago. But
and I'm really glad that Tim and Robert and all them with Joe's, bring back the red dirt and try to keep that tradition alive.
Man, I remember when I was living there, and I remember being out at the farm and somebody saying, and this feels cool. I was like, this feels like something. This feels like something that we're going to talk about years from now. I mean, look at all these talented people, and then they're all good people too. And now and Tim and Robert just making sure that everybody knows where this music come from, with honoring people like Jimmy LaFave and Tom Skinner, and knowing, that's where we got it. That's where I got it, and that's where McClure got it, was from Skinner and LaFave and Childers and everything. And it's just a legacy, in 100 years, we're going to look back and Tom Skinner's going to be the second coming of Woody Guthrie, You
can never, ever say one bad word about Blind Man. You listen to that song, and that's going to resonate forever.
That's about the most perfect written song out of this scene of music that we call Okie Red Dirt.
There was just something special about that time with all of you guys there and the elders that you guys learned from and what they taught you. Nobody ever compromised their art to fit a mold. Everybody did what they did and proved a point.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It's it was all about the music. For Jeremy and I, it's always been about the music. And, I figured 20 years deep into it where there's no turning back. I got to tell you something funny. My wife got an email from The Voice, said that they saw one of our videos and asked if I wanted to be a contestant on The Voice. And I was like, I haven't sold out in 20 years. Why would I do it now? And are you desperate? What the hell?
That's all right. They sent John Moreland one of those too.
Did they really?
Yeah, and he posted it on his Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and the comments were awesome.
I didn't know that. I haven't got the pleasure of meeting Mr. Moreland yet, but I'm going to this year in Key West, I believe.
Well, you're going to love it. He's a great guy, and he's an awesome artist, and I feel like he's kind of sparked in Tulsa what you guys did in Stillwater.
Yeah, Tulsa's alive again. It's nice to go to. I was just there a few weeks ago. It's nice to go downtown and see it alive again. I remember when we first started playing Canes, it wasn't like that downtown.
No, it was scary back then.
Yeah, it was a good place to score something and not a fan.
No, I know exactly. I've seen you guys at so many places in Tulsa over your career. Like, I can't think of the name of that place, Steamroller Blues and Barbecue or whatever.
Yep.
And then, some of the times you guys would come play the Tom Skinner Science Project stuff on Wednesday nights. And, it's I'm glad to see you're still doing it, man.
Well, thanks, dude. This is the only thing I know to do, and I'm back in love doing it again.
Well, we're happy about it, and hopefully I'll see you out at the tower this weekend. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and if you would like me to, I'll put you +1 on the guest list.
Thank you very much, and tell Shannon thank you as well.
You got it, buddy. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Rock 100.5, The Cat, KATT, J. Ramone, and The Cat's Local Talent Show. So I'm going to use some of this for both. And I've wanted to do something to kind of honor Dimebag Darrell for a long time, and I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Because growing up in southern Oklahoma, being that close to Arlington, Texas, you can't help but be a Pantera fan. And one of the things that I feel like really paints a picture and separates Dime from everybody else is that guitar. Nobody else was playing anything like that, or even for the length of their career, stuck with it all the way through like Dime did. And when I wanted to bring somebody in and talk about Dime and how Dime inspired them, I immediately thought of Zane from Locust Grove, because you've always played the Dime, style Dean guitars.
Yeah, man, like when I was young in the anti-mortem days and stuff, I had my mom actually for Christmas one year, she picked it out and showed up with, it was just the black one, the Stealth, I think, or something. It wasn't a Razorback. But anyways, just from the moment of playing it and had a Floyd Rose, it just felt right. And at the point of that, I only had like a Les Paul and I think I had an ESP or something like that, or Ibanez, I think. From day one of playing it, I always loved it. And then of course, eventually, becoming my own player and stuff, I stepped away from playing his guitar because to me, it's no different than like some new player coming out. His custom guitar is the Zakk Wylde Bullseye guitar, the Les Paul, like the Bullseye.
Right.
Cool, own one of those, you know what I mean? Play it behind closed doors. But if you're trying to go out and start a band, so I realized, I know everybody's gonna credit Dime to that guitar forever, and he's definitely one of my main influences. But yeah, that guitar, dude, is just, to this day, it's only the ML is the only thing that feels right in my hands.
What is it that makes that particular model different than a Les Paul or a Telly or a Strat or an Ibanez?
And I don't know, dude. Like, of course, being young, it was like, oh, that guitar's metal, but growing up playing it, I dig it. Some people, are like, oh, I can't play it sitting down, but I can stand it up and play it like a flying V, or tilt it on the side and play it, sitting across your lap that way. Standing up, it's comfortable, because I've played a few, the Randy Rhoads Jacksons, and just the only way to play that guitar is standing up early on, straight away from that, even though I love Randy Rhoads. But yeah, no, man, the ML, some metal guitar, some people, it's too big, too big of a bulky of a guitar for them to hold, so they get away from it.
Instantly, when you carry that guitar and you put it on and you've got the curly long hair just like Dime did, it's a nice throwback, because I think you do a good job of paying homage to Dime's tone. You have your own sound, but you definitely have, I can hear the Pantera influence.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that compliment a lot, and I definitely take it as a compliment. There'll never be another Dimebag Darrell. What's crazy, I like him a lot, not only because as a player, but every story I've ever heard, I was too young and didn't get the privilege to see Pantera or meet him, but but I'd always heard he's such a stand-up guy, cool, would take time out of his day to hang with you, take a shot with you, was all about it. And to me, that's gone in the music industry, you know, and that's how to get diehard fans. And that's why Pantera is so huge, is the fact that they hung out with everybody, they partied, they you know, did what they had to do, man. They lived it, they loved it.
He and Vinny definitely a cut from the same cloth, and they made sure everyone involved was having a good time.
I know, man. We miss Vinny too already. That sucks.
Out of all the stuff that Dime's played on, what was your favorite?
Man, I love a lot, like pretty much everything, but you know, some of my favorites, you know, I love Floods, the solo to that, Cemetery Gates, the solo to that, Cowboys from Hell, that whole song, you know, that's the one that, you know, I guess it gets every kid into Pantera. You just show them that song and they're like, okay, yeah, I love it. You know what I mean? But like, what's funny is the very first time I ever heard Pantera, I was so young, and I remember, like, I think it was my uncle, yeah, he jammed some Reinventing the Steel. Can't even tell you the song. But I remember being like 8 or something and just begging him to turn it down, or at least off, like at least down or off. And then now I feel like, dang it, could have been learning, like,
right,
you know, it could have been if I'd have just listened to it, you know. But I didn't even play guitar at that time, so I wasn't even into that kind of music that much. You know, I was still stuck in like AC/DC was like the heaviest band to me. It's kind of where you start.
That is where you start. It's a slow progression from then on.
Yep.
Well, man, what's new on the Locust Grove front?
Man, we are fresh writing some songs, dude. We've got so many we're trying to sift through and write vocals to and piece them together and get them hopefully recorded and ready for the next year.
Very nice. Well, I appreciate it, man. And I just wanted to kind of pay homage to Dime on the anniversary of his death. And I immediately thought of you playing those Dean MLs. And I just thought a perfect way to talk about it is get some guitar players and some musicians and find out how they were influenced by Dimebag Darrell.
Yeah, dude. Like, as a whole, man, that dude, he shreds, man. Like, every young kid starting out at some point is going to run across him and realize how clean, you know, he was. You know, and even at 18, you know, look at the young Dimebag videos, and it's like at 17, he had it.
He was a monster, you know.
Yeah,
he was a star.
Yep. I mean, some people have it, and some people have to work hard to get it, and he just had it. I mean, not saying you can't work hard and get there too. You know, anything's possible in this world, but he just made it look easy. Made it look like I want to do that, and then you try and you can't.
I failed miserably.
But I do run the Dimebag wah pedal just because it screams. I'll tell you, I love it.
Why that over like a Crybaby or any other wah that's out there?
I mean, to me, it's got this added overdrive to it that you can click in a little red button at the side. And when I first got it, you know, plugged that, I was like, what's that about? And it just gives you a little bit more gain when you're using the pedal. And so it screams. Like, I use that, and I use the Zakk Wylde overdrive pedal too for the same kind of reason. I used to have the TS9 Ibanez Tube Screamer, and I used it for a while. But then when I finally ran across his pedal everybody uses, there's a reason, because it sounds amazing. I love it. Zakk Wylde's another big idol of mine, so I guess when you hear me play, you can kind of hear a healthy blend of Zakk and Dime.
I can see that totally, especially with the pinch harmonics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, Zane, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, man.
No, thank you, man. Go check us out on Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Locust Grove.
I wanted to have various artists from the Oklahoma music scene who were inspired by Dime in some sort of way and talk about their influences from him. Now I've got Provo from Everybody Panic. You don't play Dean Dime ML guitars. I've never seen you do that, you know, but definitely if you've played metal in Oklahoma, you've been inspired a little bit by Dimebag Darrell.
Oh, definitely. Pantera was one of the first real, like, I guess you could say heavy bands I even got into. I listened to a bunch of other stuff, but the Vulgar Display of Power, that's a pretty heavy record. So definitely opened my mind to some different avenues for sure from there. But I do play Dean now, actually. It's not the Dimebag guitars, but I am in the Dean family now, so that's cool. It's good to be in that group.
Out of all the songs in the Pantera catalog, I know this is a totally cliche and difficult question, but out of all the songs in the catalog, which would you say is the heaviest and which would you say is your favorite?
They're both going to be on that record. This is a podcast, right? So can I say foul language?
Yes.
Great. So Fucking Hostile is one of my favorites and probably one of the heaviest as well. But another one of my tops probably is the By Demons Be Driven off of that record as well. That riff is pretty ripping. I love that one. That record in general is probably all around my favorite though, for sure. It's heavy.
What was the first Pantera record you ever listened to?
Definitely Cowboys from Hell. I mean, it was everywhere. Whenever they hit with that, you couldn't avoid them at that point. Everybody you knew was getting down to that. That was definitely my first introduction production for sure.
When you think of Dimebag Darrell, what do you think of?
Good times, good music. I met him a few times, but didn't really get to party with him, but a lot of my friends did, and always had hilarious stories of him just having a great time. And, you know, he loved to play music. He was a great musician, very focused on that, but also enjoyed life while he was out there as well, not just locked away like some rock star or something. He was out having fun with everybody, you know?
Well, man, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, I'm sitting here with Vinny, the lead guitar player from Trainwreck, a brand new project that you heard a few weeks ago on the Local Talent Show. And Vinny, you've been around bands your whole life, and you were in LA in the 80s when a lot of these hair bands and the glam scene was going on, and I'm sure you remember when Pantera was a glam band. But what do you remember about Dimebag Darrell?
First time I seen them was Foundation Forum. I was lucky enough to still be in LA when that happened. Man, they came in there, and that's a thing where all the bands that are up and coming kind of hit, you know, and it's a LA thing, so everybody's there, and we go and come in there, and Pantera hits the stage, and it's just like, man, it's one of those moments you almost think you've changed your life musically, because these guys just come in and tore it to the ground, you know, and kicked ass and left names, you know.
Dime is really integral to the Oklahoma City metal scene, as this was a regular stop for them when they were playing before they got a record deal. This is kind of how they cut their teeth. Were you ever at any of those shows in Oklahoma City back in the day?
Oh yeah, I seen Pantera at the Diamond Ballroom, and that was just killer. And actually, that's one of the things that made me always want to play there. First time I played the Diamond, I wanted to get on that stage. I'm standing right where Dime's playing. You know, that was my main thing about playing there.
I'm Jay Ramone, and I've got a special guest in studio for the podcast today, Noah Robinson, vocalist from Bleed the Sky. How are you?
Doing pretty good, man. How about you?
Dude, it's been so long since we have hung out.
Yes, it has.
You know, there for a while, we were kind of like the Chaos Twins. Like, things just hit the fan immediately when we entered a room together.
And everybody wanted to be in that room with us.
Everybody did want to be in that room with us. Or a kiddie pool in a backyard in Norman.
Hey, which we did more than once.
With a bunch of beer and lion tamers.
Yes, we did.
So I've been wanting to get you up here for a while now. How long has it been, first of all?
Oh, God. Murder the Dance came out in 2008. So we're going on 10 years between albums.
That's unbelievable. And then Paradigm and Entropy was how long before Murder the Dance?
That one came out in 2005.
So just 3 years before. And that's in the time Paradigm came out, you guys essentially relocated from San Diego or Southern California to Oklahoma City, essentially.
Yeah, we wrote Paradigm, toured on Paradigm. As soon as that was over, the touring to support Paradigm was over, then we went into the studio to start writing Murder the Dance, all out in California. We wrote Murder the Dance, recorded it, everything in California. As soon as we were done, we decided a good central headquarter location for us would be relocating back to Oklahoma City, seeing as most of us were from the Midwest. At that point, we'd had a major lineup change. Myself and Ryan were from Oklahoma area. Our guitarist at the time, Justin, is from Arkansas, and then our other guitarist, Rob, was from San Antonio. So
it did make perfect sense to relocate. Obviously, more cost effective. When you go to hit the road, you can literally go anywhere in the same amount of time, basically.
Sure, yeah, it was easy for us to hit the East Coast, Great Lakes, far south Texas, Northwest, about the same distance, coast to coast.
So both records were on Nuclear Blast.
Yes,
and obviously they loved Paradigm, and they did not like Murder the Dance, which I completely disagreed with. I think those Germans made a huge mistake not working that record properly.
Well, I think, and I've struggled with this throughout the years, but I agree with that. But at the same time, we were naive at the time to anything negative happening to us, because they praised us so highly for Paradigm and promoted it so highly that we thought we were bulletproof, that we were, just untouchable from any harm as far as the label goes, as far as promotion goes, things like that. Well, Murder the Dance was a significantly different record. Both songwriting, production, lineup change, everything was completely different about it compared to Paradigm. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of fine print that 6 drunk kids from California didn't really read properly, so we can only say it was their fault so much before, we had to take the full blame for it. In the end was on us. It was not the label. I would have appreciated more support, but hindsight, I know why they did what they did. So,
and that's just the way it works. It's the unfortunate side of the business. It happens every day. But to me, in my personal opinion, I absolutely loved that Murder the Dance record, and I still listen to it to this day.
I don't listen to my own stuff very often, but out of the two, I prefer the production of Paradigm, but the songwriting of Murder the Dance. I thought the songwriting of Murder the Dance was much more aggressive, much more risky for us. We all had kind of southern rock, stoner metal upbringings, Crowbar Down, Pantera, all those bands were big influence, Weed Eater, stuff like that. And so we kind of tried to incorporate some of that into it, and the timing was not right for Bleed the Sky to try to take that direction. So the Paradigm album was definitely more well received, but I hear a lot of people say that they prefer Murder the Dance.
Well, the reason I wanted to have you come up is this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's been really hard for me to do because I remember exactly where I was on December 8th when I got the news.
Me too.
Damage Plan on stage in the Midwest, and we
Columbus, Ohio.
We get the news immediately that there has been an active shooter enter the venue from the backstage, and that Dimebag Darrell and Vinny have both been shot at, and Dime was shot and passed away.
Yep.
And it hit me really, really hard.
Yes.
And so I haven't really been able to do like a proper Dime tribute, so to speak. And it got me thinking when I saw the stuff about the lawsuit with Buddy Blaze as the guy who says he invented the Dean from Hell, first Dime guitar. I kind of wanted to have some Oklahoma artists come in and talk about their influence from Dimebag Darrell, what he meant to them and things like that. And you were one of the first persons that I thought of.
Well, I appreciate that. He was an influence as much off the stage to not just myself, but the entire group Bleed the Sky as he was on the stage. I mean, obviously on the stage and in the studio and on the record, as kids, there was nobody tougher than listening, to Pantera. I mean, still to this day, you put in any Pantera record and it holds its own.
What's your favorite?
Definitely Far Beyond Driven, but Great Southern Trendkill is a very close second.
See, for me, it's Vulgar and Great Southern Trendkill.
See?
Those two, I mean,
yeah,
it just hit me like that.
Yeah, and a lot of people steer clear of saying Far Beyond Driven, even if it is, because that was kind of the more commercial album that they put out.
And that's a phenomenal record.
Yeah, it is. It's aggressive. It's hard. But man, Dime, it was just Dime's attitude. It was I don't care. He shed all that glam rock. Not just him, the whole Pantera group, but Dime in particular. Man, he looked like he crawled out of the back of a Chevy pickup bed and picked up a guitar and a bottle of whiskey. And I mean, there was some raw beauty to that. That he wasn't a showman by his dress. He was a showman on stage.
On stage, you go watch bands play now, and you see a guitar player who's just melting your face. He's just shredding his ass off, and he's standing there looking at the fretboard on a light box, just shredding. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Dime did that, but he was also in a full sprint doing a damn cartwheel across the stage at the same fucking time.
Or he was just windmilling, and we always used to say the prettiest part of the stage was the floor right in front of Dime, where his hair was mopping that floor, and it was just shiny and beautiful. But I mean, his aggressive personality on stage, his camaraderie with every single person, he never grew out of his shoes. You know what I mean? He always remained that Dimebag Darrell, that approachable dude, and everybody that ever encountered him will tell you the exact same thing. I've never heard, even prior to his death, never heard anybody say, oh, that guy was a dick. Like
nobody would ever say that. Not one person.
No, and Vince was the same way until his recent passing. But yeah, Dime was that guitarist that everybody, at least when I was a kid, everybody wanted to be able to write and play like him, but nobody was good enough. Nobody was that talented, tasteful. Just smooth. I mean, the guy could put back a gallon of whiskey and play better than you on your best day.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's something to be said about that. That it's just you can be taught guitar, but there is such thing as just a raw natural talent, just a God-given talent. And Dime had that, and I think it showed in every aspect of his life. And aside from just the aggressive riffs that he wrote, they were highly publicized, and everybody got to see what type of people they were, and that was attractive to all of us. Even when Bleed the Sky finally came together, that was still something to tap back into. And on stage, we tried to model the aggression that Pantera brought. Between songs, we tried to model the connection that they brought to the stage between amongst fans. There, we would talk to fans in between songs and shit. We would just
with Bleed the Sky, and the reason I thought of you, it wasn't because musically you guys sound like Pantera. I mean, there's a little bit of influence in Murder the Dance.
There was influence, but
you guys sonically and musically were nothing like Pantera. No. It was very much the live show and the way you interacted with your fans and the way you guys were just always on.
Yeah, and with that was everything you just said was what we prided ourselves on. It was performing to the best of our abilities live while still finding the balance to get really drunk and have fun with fans before, during, and after the show. It never stopped. I mean, we'd pull up to the venue, having already had a couple in the van, and we would email out at the time because that was the only, social network type thing, or MySpace back then. And we would let our fans know in this area, Chicago area, Florida, Texas, where we were, and say, hey, we're going to be at the venue for sound checks at 4:30, but we're going to be there about 1. And there'd be 20, 30 kids, 20, 30 fans, friends that we had made show up, and we'd start playing beer pong, and, we'd just hang out and socialize. And then at the end of the evening, if we didn't have to drive overnight, we'd go back to somebody's house and they'd have a big house party. And we just, that was kind of what we did, because we felt like, again, it was kind of ingrained in us in our youth that that's what you did, because back before Pantera really hit that higher level, that's exactly what they did. They never stopped appreciating their fans. I mean,
absolutely.
You look like Far Beyond Driven and Backwards. It was nothing but connection with the crowd. And even when Phil kind of started slipping from that, Dime really stepped up. That's when you started seeing the videos of them wheeling out carts of beers with half beers in the cup, and they're throwing them to people up in upper balconies and 100 yards to the back of the amphitheater. I mean, that was always just a dream of ours, was to stay connected with fans. No matter what, good day, shitty day, didn't matter. You got to be the same for your fans all the time and just connect with them and have fun. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that Dime inspired us to do.
Favorite Pantera song of all time? I know that's a loaded question and it's totally cliche and very difficult because I know you're a fan.
Yes, I am. For me, it's a tie between Tens off of Tranquil and Slaughtered off of Far Beyond Driven. And the similarity that those two songs have to me is they're two of the darkest songs that Pantera ever wrote. I mean, Slaughtered's arguably one of the heaviest they ever wrote, just grinding, super brutal. But Tens, even being slower like it was, is one of the darkest songs, in my opinion, ever written. And that was what drew us to Pantera, is they were both heavy and dark. And at the time that Pantera came out, the only competition was like Skid Row and Poison and stuff like that, which they were either heavy and it sucked, or they were poppy and happy. You know what I mean? Like there was no good blend of heavy and dark. There wasn't.
No, there wasn't back then.
No, I mean, you had a lot of it in grunge, but that was a different style of heavy. That was more lyrically and sonically heavy, where Pantera would write dark shit that was just like heavy, heavy dark. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, some of these bands were really good at writing just dark music, which I still love. But Pantera brought that really aggressive side to it that nobody else did.
My favorite by far always has been A New Level. When that riff kicks in.
Oh God. And dude, all their live all their live renditions. And look this up. And I'm gonna if you haven't heard this or seen this, I highly recommend it. There's on YouTube somewhere, there is a live video of Pantera, and I believe it was like the Reinventing the Steel tour, like that last run they did, because Phil's got hair down to his chest, wearing the Charlie Manson cutoff shirt, like beard down to his belly, but just scruffy on death's bed. In Seoul, South Korea, they play a rendition of A New Level, the intro. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, I can't. There's no way I will be able to explain it and do it justice. But anybody listening, go on YouTube and type in Pantera Seoul, South Korea, and find New Level and watch that. The intro will absolutely blow your mind and on how they went. It like how they played it ever any differently live than they did it this way will just blow your mind.
Dude, I can't thank you enough for coming in and being a part of this.
Hell yeah, Jay. Thank you.
And we're going to have to throw back some Black Tooths here real soon.
We absolutely will. We don't need a reason, but, December 8th is right around the corner.
We were going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Like I told you, I think on our walk up here, I said, we were talking about it. And you said, yeah, Dime Day's coming up. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have a couple Black Tooths, probably by myself at home because I got to work the next morning. We were talking about, wait, no, it's Saturday. Oh, shit. Okay, now we're really going to have fun.
We're going to have 100.
Yes, we are.
Rock 100.5 The Cat, KATT, J. Ramone podcast. This is the official Dimebag Darrell special, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time as a diehard Pantera fan and a fan of Dime, and I thought there's no better time than now. And I've recorded these interviews at various times throughout the week, so it's been kind of cool to kind of reminisce about Dime and get everybody's take on it. I've got Cameron Conyer in studio, and a lot of you will know him by face, but you may not necessarily know him by name. name, but he is a tech extreme guy. Like, he can work on anything out there when it comes to musical gear, pedals, guitars, boards, outboard gear, whatever it is. Like, when I have a serious question about something, I've picked his brain a few times. And on top of that, he's an incredible guitar player and been in the metal scene here in Oklahoma City for quite some time, as well as touring with, I can't even tell you how many bands.
Yeah, like a few to name, like Fear Factory with Jerry, with my buddy Jerry, and then my first ever touring gig was actually Paul Rogers.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, it was rad. I was like, oh, I guess this is a good way to get broken because it'll never be this nice ever again. Went from that to eating ramen all the time, but it was pretty bad.
That's the way it goes, though, man. You know, those old guys, they get the good catering.
Oh, yeah, dude. It was like, well, we're putting you in a 5-star hotel. It looks like super posh, like it'd be in a porno movie or something. Oh, my God. They know it's just me staying here, right?
You're one of those guys that's always posting on Facebook about different gear, and I'm a total gearhead and geek out. And so when I was thinking about this, I thought, you know, you'd be a perfect guest to come on and talk about some of the technical stuff that Dime has done. But how has Dime influenced you in your career?
Well, I would say that, you know, I discovered him much later than I think a lot of people did, to be honest. Like, I had, you know, heard some of the radio tunes, and I always thought they were pretty cool, but I never actually really discovered it until I was listening to Damage Plan. I thought that the band was pretty cool, and I started kind of digging backwards, and I was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't ever realize the guy could shred like he could until way later. You know, it just completely missed me. And then right about the time I finally like started falling in love with his playing and all that, you know, the thing happened in I guess it was Columbus. Was that?
Yep, Columbus, Ohio.
I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. It broke my heart for real. And so it was like from there, I was like way into his playing and all that. And he was like another guy, kind of like Marty Friedman was to me. Like, they didn't really think about what they're doing. They just did it, and it sounded awesome. You know, it wasn't always like by the book, you know. Half the time, Dime was pretty trashed, and it was still ripping like that on stage.
See, Noah and I, from Bleed the Sky, he and I were talking about it because Noah's seen him several times live. And we were talking about how some of the very best metal bands that are in the business right now, current day, you watch them on stage, and when they're shredding like that, they're standing on top of a light box or something like that, and they're kind of whipping their hair, but they're like looking at the fretboard and kind of jamming.
Yeah.
Dime didn't do that. Like, he was
Dime,
like running full sprint across the stage, you know, jumping, throwing that guitar around.
He had something in him that all of us that play guitar want, like the natural ability to just emote to that stuff. You know, like some players have it. Like I would say my buddy, one of the guitar players around here that everybody knows, and everybody's probably as jealous as I am of the guys, Jay Gleason. And that guy has got that.
He's just got the it factor.
He's got it. It's not hard for him. And it's like, man, I'm like working my ass off trying to get, you know, any kind of, you know, close to that. But Dime was just a natural talent, and he was just I think one of the reasons why he's so well loved is because he was also just a regular old dude. And he'd go to pop into regular local metal shows and go sit there and drink and party with people. And I know he bought my buddy Adam a lap dance at the titty bar down there one time. He's like, yeah, dude, we were just out there hanging out, and Dime walks in, and he's just hanging out, and he's just so nice and cool. And then he's like, hey, brother, you want a lap dance? Hey, come here. You know, and he calls a girl over, and like singing, he's like, oh, okay, you know. And I mean, I've heard stories like that over and over again about the guy.
That's like the greatest heavy metal rite of passage of all time. Just like you're at the clubhouse, and Dime just like, hey, Diamond, come over here.
I know. I couldn't imagine that, you know. I've met a few of my heroes before, and they've been cool, but I imagine he was like literally the coolest.
I've done this for 20 years, and the ones that I'm like a super fan of, if I don't know how they are beforehand, I don't want to meet them.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it. I don't want to ruin it for me. Like,
you don't want to be an asshole, and you're like, oh man, now I don't like you anymore.
I'm genuinely a music fan, and I listen to music all the time, and so I don't want that ruined for me. Like Mike Ness and Social Distortion.
It can be pretty scary to meet your heroes because sometimes they're not very friendly.
I've heard horror stories about Social D and Mike, and I love that band. And so I don't ever want to meet the dude because I don't want it to ruin all these years.
You don't want to connect that to the music. It happens, yeah. I mean, that's definitely the case for some people.
But then when I met Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio, he was awesome. He was a great dude, and I'm a big Alkaline Trio fan. So you know, there's give and take there. But Dime was on a whole nother level with that. Like he he was just a straight up genuine guy who just
hilarious
treated people with respect and was he was the life of the party. He was the funny guy.
He's just a great dude. And one of the stories that I remember when I was touring with Fear Factory, Dino told me how like you would be like so drunk, just trying to get, you're like, okay, I gotta, kind of disappear. And he's like, you'd go get in your bunk, think you were safe. They would come drag your ass out of the bunk. I mean,
like,
they
would
not
done
let
yet.
Oh, come here, Dino. We called him Dino. Come on, Dino, we're drinking this shit, and it's like you couldn't like get away from it. You're like, oh man, okay, you get sucked back into the black hole. And I can only imagine how fun it would have been to get to meet him. And I actually got to meet Rita one night. She was a fan of Hinder.
Big fan. That's how I met Rita, was with the Hinder guys.
So she was on our bus at Sturgis, and she was really sweet lady. Perfect girl for a dime, I imagine, because she was just as down to earth as anybody I met. And she was, I just can't imagine losing somebody like that, and like having such a
and the way that he died.
Yeah,
that is something that has stuck with me for a long time, because I've been a musician my whole life. That scares the absolute shit out of me.
Yeah, that's just that kind of stuff is you can't defend yourself from that, And I mean, I think clubs have tried to do a better job of watching the doors and stuff, but I mean, you can't afford to staff some of these places and make it.
You just can't.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to think.
Rely on the people not to kill you while you're on stage.
The average security guard is going to make $15 an hour.
Yeah,
you do that times 10 hours or 12 hours.
Yeah.
That you need somebody there times however many exits. That's a lot of times as much as the guarantee the headliner is making for these metal bands.
You have only so much overhead, and if some of these clubs are trying to keep the shows affordable, so they can only charge, a band like them, they were probably charging $25-$30 a ticket or something, but that just gets ate up real quick. I mean, like, production costs get up there real fast, and I understand the restrictions you're kind of up against on these deals, so I don't really blame the club. How can you? You can't blame the club for some psychopath running in the door.
Right. You cannot blame a venue for a guy's mental illness. It's not their fault. It's just.
And I mean, that I can only imagine how just absolutely insane it was to be anywhere near that. And actually, I ran into a high school bud who was there. He said he was waiting to get in the door when that happened. And he's like, he can finally convince his mom to let him go to this metal show. I guess they were in town, and he's like, I'm standing in line, and then, oh my God, like, you hear gunfire, and like everybody's freaking out, and it's like, oh man, and he's like, now is he's an adult and all that nowadays, but he's like, I had to eat so much crow with my parents,
Well, did you ever meet Chris Paluska, who worked at the Diamond Ballroom and worked for DCF?
Yes,
he was there. He was on stage.
Yep.
He got shot at that show. Hearing the stories from him, that first account was just surreal to me.
Yeah, it's terrifying, honestly, and it's just like he was taken that way, which was very unbelievable to begin with, and then I don't know, man, like whenever Vinny passed away, it like really I felt it hard then, because like the finality of all of it, like the power,
it's for sure not happening now. Like
what
we all held on to. We never really wanted it to happen, but we all secretly did to see some sort
I really did want to see some kind of
it may not have been a Pantera tour, but I would have loved to have seen like a tribute show with the surviving members and like A-list guitar players all night, kind of like they did Roadrunner United or something like that.
I just really wanted to see Vinny and Phil and everybody to have a chance to just kind of reconcile.
Right.
I really wanted to see that, because I know that I don't know everything that went down. I couldn't possibly, but I do know that it seems to me that Phil really wanted that. I wanted that for the guy, and for
when you hear him now, you realize that he's carried a lot of guilt for so long for his drug abuse and the way that he treated, his bandmates and things like that. That I really feel like Phil is a good guy at heart.
Absolutely.
He just had a lot of demons,
I'm certain he was, but I mean, you put heroin into anybody and they don't stay the same.
No, it changes things. They turn into bad people.
It just rewires your brain completely. I mean, I know from close personal experience that certain types of drugs, anyways, will rewire your brain completely, and it's like you're not the same. They're not the same person anymore, and it's just really hard to deal with. with. I'm just glad that we actually got to get something, out of such an amazing brothers. The two brothers that were like put out some of the best metal stuff you ever heard in your life,
and not just Pantera.
Yeah.
There's Damage Plan. There was the Rebel Meets Rebel stuff.
Yeah, they just were constantly putting out good material, and it's deceivingly hard to play drums and guitar.
When I was in a band and we were touring, we weren't really touring. We were doing like 4 and 5 day runs,
Weekend Warriors
and then coming home.
Mm-hmm.
But we were going out with bigger bands, but we were just playing this one particular region. I gotcha. But that's where watching the Pantera videos is where I learned we needed to stock up on Pedialyte before we hit the road.
They were chasing a lot of their stuff with Pedialyte to keep from dying.
I totally feel like that's what kept them alive is all the electrolytes.
Yeah, and now there's some kind of like liver supplement you can take to keep your liver from shrinking up. It's like, don't give up your bad habits. Just take this medicine and keep poisoning yourself. It's like, oh man.
So let's talk about Dime's guitar tone.
Okay.
You go see a lot of local metal bands when they're first starting out, and they're obviously influenced by Pantera.
Absolutely.
And you look at the EQ on their guitar head, and you see the treble, the high EQ turned all the way up, the mids turned all the way down, and the lows turned all the way up. And they think, I want that Dime tone. That's the exact opposite of Dime's real tone. When you look at his...
the way I don't actually like have any insight into exactly what he was doing, but it sounds to me like he was diming everything on the amp, and then I know he used a parametric EQ like in the effects loop, somewhere, and that's where he was scooping out all the mids, and
it wasn't on the head. It was a totally different.
Yeah, it's
deal.
after the back. That because like you get all he's using solid state amps. They behave differently than a tube head, but he would do that. I imagine to get more saturation out of the head because obviously he had a ton of like distortion. Going on.
Gain turned way up.
Yeah, it was almost all the way up. And he had a very hot wound pickup that he's playing on too. Bill Lawrence. He had like probably prototypes on almost all his main guitars, but the 500 XL is a very very hot wound pickup. So all that would amount to tons of distortion, and that's what gave him a lot of those like the sustain on some of those notes and like the harmonics of each note that would jump out and scream whenever he'd play those bends and stuff like that. And I mean, but any guitar player knows that it's all in the hands. You could have every single one of Dime's original pieces of gear and still not sound anything like
You're never going to sound like that.
I've had plenty of fun trying to recreate the sound as much as I can. I'm using a Mesa Boogie Mark V head. It's a tube head, but
one of the best, like most coveted heavy metal heads of all time.
Yeah, so I've got it dialed in pretty close, and guess what? Preamp is dimed out basically, and the graph is scooped out. So it's fun, man. It's fun to play with those things and get those tones. And I actually went out and bought a Dean from Hell so I could, partly because it looks awesome, and the 16-year-old me was like, hell yeah, dude. And so I found one, and they were a lawsuit guitar for a while. That lawsuit just settled up, and anyways, I guess they're absolutely going to start building them again. I don't know how long they were out of production for.
Yeah, I was curious. I hadn't realized that they had been out of production. I just didn't.
Yeah, I think they just got a cease and desist doing litigation and all that stuff. And I remember they came. This version that I've got is it's not the USA version. I couldn't afford one of those right now, but I know that they came out with that design in like 08 or something, or 07, or it was a while back. And I was actually working at Guitar Center. It might have even been before that. It's a long time ago. I remember that. And I remember they were on the floor there, and it was right before the Razorback stuff came out.
Right.
And I was like, that guitar is fucking cool. And I was way into like PRSs and stuff back then. I'm not gonna lie, I'm into like the pretty, fancy tops and all that stuff. But that thing looked cool as hell, and I played on it a few times. Had the E-tape on the pickup bobbins and stuff, and I mean they tried to give you his guitar, for at a price you can afford, and I thought they sounded pretty cool. And all these years later, I find one, and down there in Texas, a guy down there had one on Facebook Marketplace of all places, and being the redneck I am, I haggled him down to a pretty damn good price on it, and I bought it, and I got it home, and it had barely been played, man. It had a few little nicks on it here and there, but like
he's probably just a fan and wanted one, and
yeah, he I guess he was from Jersey is where he was from, and he had bought it, and he said the neck shape just was weird to him. I mean, it's got a sharp V. I can show you there. It's like a very sharp V neck on it. It feels
why?
different.
Why did he do that? I wonder.
I have no idea. I mean, I guess
just for precision. engine for speed?
I don't know why I did it. I mean, I don't really know the reasoning for it, but I just know that's the way they were. So all the replicas are the same, you know. And so the guy said, I just really couldn't play it. He's like, I wound up playing all my other guitars more, and so I got it from him, and you know, I was cleaning it up, and I took all the hardware off and got it all cleaned up, and you know, I had to get a ton of gunk and stuff and off the board because it just been sitting, and you know, like fretboards can get nasty from sitting. So I had to take some fine steel wool, and I got all the frets polished, got all the crap off the board, and re-oiled it and everything. It looked like a brand new guitar when I was done. I was like, oh my god, I got a good deal on this thing. And then I pulled the pickups out so I could polish the top and get all the glaze, get all the swirls and all that stuff off of it. And it had a real Bill Lawrence pickup in a USA.
Wow!
Like they put a real Bill Lawrence pickup in those things. And I was like, hell yeah! I thought it was just like
some knockoff.
Yeah, I did. I was prepared to buy one. You know, I had a friend that had one, and I was about to buy it, and I'm like, hey, never mind, I got one. So
that's great.
Yeah, I was stoked, man, and really for it's a great guitar. Honestly, I've been real impressed with it.
What's it like holding it compared to like a normal guitar? Because the shape is so different.
The shape is quite a bit different. If you're sitting down, it's obviously much different to play than like a Les Paul or a Super Strat or something. But standing up, it's fine. You know, it's just about like anything else. You know, like I played some Flying V's before, and you know, the strap is a little weird.
Right.
You got to get used to that just a little bit, but it's not just like completely different or anything. But it's a Gibson scale. I think they're 24 3/4. So it's only a 22 fret guitar. So that surprised me actually, because he's always been in way up there, you know.
Well, and they look so damn big on him, especially. You know, they look like these monster sized guitars.
Yeah, they're pretty good size. I mean, really, you can see the gig bag that I got it in. It's a lot wider than your standard dill.
Right.
And it's longer too, because you know everything's pointing out 10 feet. You know. Yeah, it's actually a pretty cool guitar, and he played light gauge strings. You know, he just he would play, and he didn't play like 440 tunings either. I think he was like playing some. I think somebody's telling me it was 432. I don't know if it was right on that, but I know it was like a few cents, I think 7 cents or something flat of normal tuning. And you know, half the time it's got a Floyd on it. He's like digging in when he's palm muting and stuff, and that's bending the bridge sharp a little bit the whole time. And it's just that's why he played. You know, he was unorthodox as hell. And
well, it's like he realized that he played so hard that he was gonna be sharp, and just to naturally
maybe
bring
he
it back,
did. That might have been the reasoning for it. But if you listen to the recordings, at least you have to tune your guitar down to match, because it's not 440. You know,
right?
So.
Did you ever play any of the crank amps?
I did. Yeah, that was the only tube amp you ever had made. It was the Crankenstein, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, they were cool, man.
Wasn't it something like stupid, like 200 watts or
probably
something? Like
so.
Really
Yeah, I know that they were like, I think it was a 3-channel amp too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was tons of gain. I've seen a few of them around. You see them every once in a while in somebody's studio or something. They went out of business and then some back. I think they're back in business now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm gonna have to look.
Yeah,
they weren't around very long.
Yeah, they disappeared, but I'm pretty sure somebody bought them and brought them back. Same thing happened with Dean.
It's crazy the way these gear companies, like, they just buy and sell brands basically.
Yeah. Well, mismanagement is pretty rampant, you know. You know, like Gibson just had to had to get rid of their CEO. I guess he ran it into the ground, and everybody hated that guy apparently.
Dude, I was working a Red Dirt festival this year as the runner, and we're backing in one of the opening bands. You know, the headliner's bus is closest to the stage, and we're just putting them in a line. And so I'm helping this guy back this van and trailer down to get it in line. And as soon as we get in place, I put my hand up to stop, and I walk to the front of the van to say, "All right, you're good to go."
Yeah.
And I see what looked like a Make America Great Again hat sitting there in the dashboard, and it's a Make Gibson Great Again hat.
Oh yeah, I've seen those before. Yeah, that's hilarious, man. Yeah, I have always I think Les Pauls are a very cool looking guitar, you know, and you know, so the thing that's happened to them is they got hit or miss on their build quality, you know, like you'd look down the fretboard and it would look like a roller coaster on the fret jobs, you know, and you're like, man, these guitars are expensive. It don't take that long to get that portion of it right, you know.
Right.
You know, you'd spend $3,500 plus on a Gibson Les Paul custom, and you have to go spend another $200 or $300 getting a fret level and all that stuff done. And they were just using like Rich Light and like plastic nuts and all this crap, you know. And their paint jobs weren't very good anymore, and they get sticky. Like I worked for tons of artists using Gibson guitars, and outdoor summertime festival, you go pick that guitar up, it'd be sticky. You know, like, what's going on here. Everybody else has got it down. You know, like you can go pick up a sticky Strat or a PRS or anything, you know, and so it was biting them in the ass. Like people are finally tired of paying premium price for a guitar that was subpar, you know. And,
right.
And
didn't a lot of their builders like leave and go to different companies and stuff too?
That happens a lot, I think, anyways, with, you know, gear companies. But I'm hoping that they get their shit back together, because nobody wants to see an iconic brand like Gibson disappear. I mean, they were having to shut down factories and stuff.
It kind of stung a little bit when I saw the meme of the Les Paul headstock and it said Fender instead of Gibson on it. Like that was just like a little too much. Yeah, you know, too real.
Yeah. Well, you know, like, and another thing is, like, people have been copying each other's builds forever. You know, like that PRS John Mayer guitar is a Strat, basically. That was a big deal to some people. They were pissed off about it. You know, and I'm like, well, I mean, that's not the first Strat copy they built. They had that Grissom model, I believe it was a Strat, right? Whatever it was, and I thought they were good guitars from what I played. They're kind of ugly, you know, but you know,
everybody thinks that Paisley Telecaster that Prince played was a Fender. Wasn't a Fender. It was a Korean knockoff.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people playing.
That was as fake as it comes. Yeah. You know?
I don't know, man. I'm still under the impression that you can buy nice instruments, you can buy nice gear, and it definitely better sounds to be had out of a nicer guitar, I would say. But it's still about the player. Always. I've seen guys rip on $200 Squires that sounded incredible.
I've watched a dude rip it on a plastic Disney guitar at a Walmart in the toy section. You know, like, it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done, dude. It's all about how much time you put into your instrument, you know, and your craft, and how much natural talent were you blessed with, I guess.
We'll wrap this up.
I have the world's worst, like, dead brain. I can't remember anything.
Fix anything. We can't remember names.
I can, you know, I can't remember anything, but I can fix just about anything, that's for sure.
Check out the latest episode of the Jay Ramone podcast, available now on podcast platforms everywhere and cat.com.